Hey Mihao, here it is finally, the funnels video. I decided to write down some notes for myself for each of these slides to kind of keep me on track, so hopefully this will be the quickest and most efficient video that I've sent you so far. Before I get into it though, I'd like to hop on my soapbox for a second and talk about why I'm so excited about what we've been working on and why I think a proper evidence-based and effective marketing and advertising plan is imperative for Thorchain. And I definitely wrote this down, so this is going to feel a little scripted and a little hammy, but that's okay. So, when the telephone saw mass adoption, it changed the world. Everyone has a phone now, but telecom companies still use ads and marketing. When personal computing was virtually in every home and we were all connected by the internet, it changed the world. Microsoft and Apple still spend millions on marketing every year. Technology may change and evolve, but it does that far quicker than people. Crypto is changing the world, but what drives our behavior hasn't changed. In industries with as much competition as we see in crypto, decades of evidence show that marketing is effective and necessary to reach, and more importantly, stay at the top. So that's just my little PSA kind of personal diatribe there. So now let's jump into funnels. So these content funnels are made up of 4 key components. Each component serves a purpose and has unique content types. Every funnel will include all 4 components at minimum, but how many of each component is dependent on the scope of the campaign. For planning purposes, each funnel will be looked at in its entirety, but in practice, the content within the funnels can either be seen together, think like a Twitter thread style, or split up in different places or deployed at different times, think mobile site cards, standalone content for organic or paid posts on other platforms. This allows for high-level visibility when developing creative approaches for in-market planning and coordination with other teams. So for instance, the org may not need a full funnel, but it can benefit from specific content pieces from within funnels. So let's jump to this slide here. So these are the goals that I set out for this funnel process. So simple, scalable, modular, and trackable. And if we hit on those 4 things, then we're going to have some good funnels. We'll come back to this in a second, but I would like to jump here. And now, these are the 4 components of the funnel system. So there's an entry point, a mainline content block, a trackable exit opportunity, and a trackable conversion endpoint. So you can read these little descriptions here if you would like. Take a second here, you can pause this if you want. We're going to jump back into this slide here and talk about these 4 goals as they relate to the 4 components of each funnel. So, simple. Every funnel, no matter how large, can be broken down into 4 key components, and every piece of content within that funnel will fall into one or another. For scalable, each of the 4 components work with one another to provide infinite scalability to a funnel campaign. As long as there is an entry point and a trackable conversion endpoint, the middle can be filled out by as many mainline content blocks and trackable exit opportunities as are needed to meet the business and creative goals. It's modular because the benefit of having a system like this means not every funnel needs to be developed from scratch every time. As we populate the information and topics in each component class, we can look for opportunities to mix and match components in the same funnel for something like retargeting or a content refresh, or carry over into other funnels to make the development process even more efficient. This is a model that utilizes compound growth, meaning the longer we work within the system, the easier and quicker we can produce funnels. It's trackable because the point of these funnels is to increase metrics that matter to Thorchain, like total value locked and the number of liquidity providers. We can't effectively do that unless we can measure and understand what works. What we have in the funnel are strategically placed trackable exit opportunities that allow for the audience to leave the funnel to visit a relevant third-party site like Binance, BepSwap, whatever, but do it in a way that can be tracked. In doing this, we can start to compile data that looks at engagement with the funnel beyond likes and retweets, but measures how many within the audience are going to third-party sites. Now, this isn't a guarantee that they'll interact with the sites in a way that increases TVL, but it's a starting benchmark to gauge interest and effectiveness of the content and start to work on analytics that can estimate a conversion rate at each step of the TVL and LP process. So it's like buying rune, staking, providing liquidity, etc. Up to and including the final conversion in the trackable, I can't even remember my own acronyms now, trackable conversion endpoint, which is the endpoint of the funnel. So now we're going to look at how we can put these funnels into practice. So let's pop this up for a second again. You can pause this and take a look at it again if you want. But we'll jump in now to the dev process for the funnels. So step 1 is identify a campaign to build a funnel for. Step 2 is build a brief for the funnel dev team. Then look at the component lists to see what aligns with the campaign goals. So that's the list of topics and themes and pieces of content that fit into each of the 4 key components. Check the campaign link generator for the links to use in the trackable exit opportunities. So that's like what we've been talking about, thorchain.page, and it would be something like thorchain.page/Binance/BepSwap/AsgardX, etc. Step 5 is build funnel system using components for quick reference. Step 6 is build out any necessary briefs or copy deck for the creative teams working on the content. And then the final step is to begin creative development. So now we'll jump into this a little bit more in depth. So for steps 1 and 2, so an example of this, and this is also kind of taking into account the GitLab stuff that I showed you yesterday. This is all going to be in this deck for now, but there's definitely an opportunity for us to start working with the GitLab process and kind of implementing this, and then actually starting to put together funnels, or at least put together spec funnels to figure out what works, if there's anything that needs to be tweaked, anything like that. So first we would start off by picking a campaign, which I've chosen TVL campaign, so focusing on getting an increase in total value lock, and actually, as said before, being able to track that. The second step would be, this is now the brief, and this is just a quick little brief, but it would be build a funnel that guides new Thorchads on how to buy a rune. So this is new people coming in, they've either seen some MCCN content or they've just found Thorchain in their own research. They don't own any rune, they don't have a bag, they're not a liquidity provider, but they're starting to get interested in this project. This funnel would serve as kind of the guiding path to getting started with the Thorchain ecosystem. So now step 3. Oh, and sorry, let me just back up really quick. For step 2, talking about new people coming in, this may seem like an obvious task for us, but we have to remember that we're reaching out to people who are totally new to Thorchain, and may even be new to crypto. So we can't expect them to seek out the information. We have to bring it to them. The kind of philosophy or mentality that I take with the work that I do is the more steps that we can eliminate between, somebody being, for instance, like a non-runer or like a non-coiner, and them becoming a liquidity provider, the more we can eliminate steps in between those 2 points, the more we can increase our chances of success. So that's, again, just kind of a little philosophical side note for that step. And now getting into step 3. So this is looking at the component list to see what aligns with the campaign goals, like what lists for each of the key component parts. Obviously, we're still building this out, so we don't have like full spreadsheets or anything like that yet. That's going to be something that's ongoing. But I just put together a couple things based on a simple kind of single component funnel design. So like one of everything, and then an extra MCB block, mainline content block. So starting out for the first funnel part, which is the EP, target messaging at people who have Bitcoin and ETH, are still new to crypto but ready to move to the next step and get their crypto working hard for them. Move from hodling to staking and providing liquidity. So this is the first, if we're thinking about this in the terms of like a Twitter thread, for instance, if we're looking at this as a piece of content that includes the entire funnel, this is the first tweet that they would see that leads them into the thread itself. So we would be targeting people who, already have some crypto, Bitcoin and ETH for sure, but then maybe they have like a couple altcoins. They're kind of dipping their toe in the water of, DeFi projects and getting a little bit more in the weeds on it, but they're still fairly new. this is an opportunity by targeting them to get them early and get them into the Thorchain ecosystem as they grow into, whatever kind of crypto person they're going to be. And then, so that would be the first post, or the entry point, grabbing their attention. And then the next one would be the first main content block. So this is again just like kind of a light, high level brief that we would be giving to a creative. It would be something like, talk about MCCN because it just launched. Rune keeps hitting all-time highs. It just keeps climbing. And then like an emotional tie here would be something along the lines of, you're still early, but don't sleep on this opportunity. So it's like, MCCN still launched, but mainnet hasn't launched yet. Rune still has a long way to go. These liquidity pools can add more depth. Obviously not getting too technical because these are new people, but basically picking the emotional points that let them know that they're still early, they haven't missed the boat on this, and really being like, but if you don't get in, you will eventually miss it. And even just in the last month or two, how much has Rune climbed? So playing off of that kind of emotional trigger. And then this leads us to the first trackable exit opportunity post or stage, which would be linking out to the org site. So it's like, hey, you want to learn more, or you want to, find out some more information, here's the org site. And then they can go do all of their research or whatever they want to look for. But then this link would obviously be trackable. So this is the first kind of point where we're starting to gather data on kind of consumer and audience behavior as they interact with the content that we're producing. And it opens up in a new window so they can have it there on the side for reference, but it still kind of keeps them in the pipeline of this funnel. And you'll see that in the next slide, how that kind of breaks out visually. Then we get to the next mainline content block. So this is, they've come back from the org site and they're like, wow, what an awesome org. And Rune is so cool and Thorchain looks like a wicked project. How do I get involved? So then now this is taking us to the first kind of real actionable step. The first step is to buy some Rune. And this is an example of this is something where I would probably pass this to you, or if we're working with any other strategists or getting the creatives involved, this would be like a recommendation opportunity. So would reco a short video piece, show the process so it's easy for someone to get involved. And again, kind of coming back to the less roadblocks, more chance of success philosophy. So that would be an opportunity to provide some insight, or to provide an opinion on what type of content it could be, if the content is necessary for the information that's being communicated. Obviously, we want to try to create content, or at least develop strategy for content that doesn't rely upon one single type of content execution. But for some things, and especially the more actionable things like video and screen record walkthrough of here's how you buy Rune on Binance, blah blah blah, that is going to be probably the most effective way to do it. So it really doesn't take away from the impact of the content to suggest a content type at this stage. But again, that isn't the goal with this step. It's just, if there's an opportunity that we see, we can kind of skip ahead a step just to kind of make it a little bit more efficient. So then once they've watched the video and they're like, yo, I'm ready, let's buy some Rune, then that takes us to the end of the funnel, which is the targeted conversion endpoint, and then we link out to Binance. And then this would be an opportunity to include a snappy CTA line. I had something in my head, but I forget now. Something like welcome to Thorchain, but cooler and more exciting. This is why we have copywriters. And then the final step here on this slide, step 4, is generating the links to Thorchain, org, and Binance. So again, that's as I mentioned before, thorchain.page/Binance/org, whatever it is, and then this is also something that we can build out a list of links, kind of based on the Google Analytics process that we put in place, so that there's links for anybody who's involved in kind of developing the content. If they're making the funnel, obviously we generate links for them so that they have their own personal trackable links, but it's also something that links back to the main kind of research and analytics stage of this process, so that we can generate all of that info and have that at our disposal for increasing strategy and building on it as we go along. Again, thinking about longevity and growth over time, which is going to be the thing that guarantees success, is slow but quick still growth with a strong methodology, a strong approach, and responsibilities put in through metrics and analytics and reporting and stuff like that. So now we're getting into step 5, which is actually using the kind of funnel pieces that I developed and building it out into kind of a visual roadmap. This stage isn't super necessary, but I think especially early on, this will be really helpful for educational purposes for any of the creative people that we're working with, or even just for us to kind of maintain a visual roadmap of how these funnels work, because obviously now this isn't a straight funnel. As you would normally see, there are, it's more like, I don't know what you would call it, like it's like a Mario pipe system where you have like entry points and exit points, but there's still this one long kind of path to take. So, you hop in and then you go down through here. You can hop out here, but this still exists. So these little blurbs are the same thing that I just kind of walked through here, but it presented in a different way that's a little bit easier to digest and a little bit easier to visualize, especially for anybody that's working on the funnel, or if there's like different teams or different people working on the funnel. This can serve as like a really good, quick visual reference point for them. And then moving into this final part here. So step 6, which is building out any of the necessary briefs or copy decks for the creative team. That's exactly what this would be. So we would take the template that I uploaded to GitLab, put in all the necessary like strategy, SEO, copy themes, copy style, all of that stuff, filling it out so that we could then hand that off to copywriters so they could start working on the posts. If it's we develop maybe like a storyboard template, again trying to ride that line of providing as much info and as much guidance as we can to make sure that we're delivering on the business objectives and supporting the creative people that we're working with, but not hindering their ability to be creative and explore innovative, creative ways of kind of communicating these topics and these objectives. So we build that all out, hand it all off, and it's something that we can kind of build in the GitLab process over time. Again, thinking about longevity and kind of evolution and iterative thinking. And then finally, step 7 is just, get to work, hand it all off, give it to them, and then get that process going. So that's pretty much it for the funnels. I do want to add, there's one kind of bonus thing at the end here that I've been working on that I haven't included in here because it's not really concrete, but I thought that it would be a really cool opportunity for us to explore, which is having like an additional kind of quote unquote hidden section at the end of the funnel. If we're talking about the bigger stuff like liquidity providers, if we can kind of get them to that end point, that trackable conversion endpoint, and get them to become liquidity providers and really get them involved in the community and in the project, we can actually start to develop an additional funnel system that helps lead them into becoming basically like a brand ambassador or like a community content creator. So this way we can kind of funnel new people into this community content ecosystem that we've been talking about. And this is something, we haven't really talked about it in any of these videos, I don't think, other than in passing, but really one of the guiding forces is obviously to empower the community to be able to create the best content possible that works for the brand, but keep things, kind of as decentralized as possible, and really only centralizing the most kind of high level things that we can. So like the business goal stuff, the strategy stuff, the things that sort of need to be dictated by someone, and we can kind of filter that through the larger community and that kind of executive dev team and everybody, and then package it up and put it out into the community so that everybody can just run with it and build this amazing kind of community content structure and team that we've been talking about. So that will come with time. Anything like this, like decentralizing something like this is definitely a process, because you still have to be able to make sure that you're beholden to what the goals are, and it's something that we're definitely going to kind of evolve and grow and shift and change as this goes along, but always having that as a guiding force of like, how can we keep this as open and honest and inclusive and collaborative as possible, and any other adjectives or qualifiers that you can think of. But that's basically it for the funnels here. So hopefully this one, I haven't been watching the time, but hopefully this one is a little bit shorter than the other ones. It feels like it is, but still provides the same kind of depth of information and thinking, and shows my process, and allows you to be able to digest it. And I'm looking forward to talking to you about it more. So talk to you later.